This is one of my many models that I have. No job is too large or too small. If it's important to the customer, it's important to me.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Culbert, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert, and today's guest is a true powerhouse in the facilities world. He's a people-first leader who thrives on collaboration and tackling complex challenges head-on. From juggling fast-moving facilities projects to keeping everything running smoothly behind the scenes, there's truly never a dull moment in his world. He's currently the facility manager for BD in Meriden, Connecticut. Marc Cammarata, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay. I'm excited to be here. So I just want to tell you right off, show number 99, I'm a little disappointed you didn't wait for 100, but I'll take it. It's an easy number to remember. So if I want to have a cringe moment and look back at these podcasts, I know which one to hit.
So everyone knows from the moment I met Marc, I knew today's show would be very entertaining, exciting, and enjoyable, and it already is. So, and I learned something. Don't tell someone they're the 99th episode or say the 199th. It wasn't received. So Marc, we let me jump into it here. With all of your experience, your years in your journey professionally, what has been your biggest lesson learned?
My biggest lesson learned. Oh, well, there's been a lot of lessons, but if I would say one lesson that hits home is you need to be a good listener.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Tell us more about that. Why do you pick that?
People who like to fix things and help out have a tendency to think we know what the problem is before the customer finishes telling or elaborates on the problem. And because we're so anxious to get going and help people out and fix it in record time. But I find that it's very important to not only have the ability to carefully listen and understand what the customer's telling you, but also ask the right questions, right? A lot of times, especially when I was in the laboratory as a laboratory instrumentation engineer, people tell you what you want to hear. So the way that you uh, ask them the questions, try to get the information is really the key to success, because a lot of times if a customer is fearful they did something wrong, they may tell you what they think that you want to hear. So you really need to let the story unfold organically. Let them tell you their side of the story. And as an engineer, especially with high-end laboratory, it's probably going to help you figure out where the problem is, from something that was a fluke accident, which was a legitimate break, to something that the user did on their end, which was inappropriate, and it could be an easy fix. So listening is imperative. And then after you listen and you have kind of an idea where you want to go with it, is follow up with the right questions, and that will help you narrow down what the problem could potentially be. And it's exceptionally important when you're traveling all over the country to get all the information as possible, because you want to be preemptive and bring the parts with you, or what you could assume could be the necessary parts to repair the problem. When I was in the field, my schedule was typically 8 to 9 weeks out, and I traveled all over the US. So if I didn't have a part when I was out in the paper in the upstate Wisconsin, I couldn't tell the client that I'd see him in 8 or 9 weeks. It was unacceptable. So I always did my best to have a phone call with the customer prior to me arriving at their site. And that would give me a good indication what was probably going on. Now, me being a full-time facility manager on site every day, I have the luxury of walking down the hallway. So I'm certainly not flying nearly as much as I did. Actually, not at all. But those skills are still very important, to actually listen to the customer, gather information, almost like a detective, see what's going on. Sometimes I'll ask two people that saw the same event, and I'll get slightly different stories. So information gathering is imperative at the first part of try and resolve. Sometimes you don't have that luxury where you just need to go out in the field and just start kicking the tires and seeing, what's going on. So from the fundamentals all the way up to the more challenging stuff.
I think it's such sound advice you're giving, and really good walkthrough on a lot of things. I took a few notes here, right? So people will tend to tell you what they think you want to hear, I think is what you said, not necessarily what you need to hear or should hear.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and it could make the situation even more confusing.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely can. Well, Mark, in my experience, I've seen it also could hinder progress in a very detrimental way, because if you then assume that that is the accurate answer and move forward with it, where you could be moving in the wrong direction. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. So,
really good advice. I'm sure you're loving, or are you loving not traveling quite that much anymore?
oh, I love, let's see, my son's an adult now, but when he was younger, I was traveling. So I missed his first step, first words. I was out in probably Wisconsin or Seattle somewhere. But when my second and third child, I was home, and actually, I came home from work and I got to see my second child take his first steps to his mother, which was pretty awesome. So, um, I had a really good time in the field. I did it for 2 decades. It was awesome, but once I started having kids, I wanted to be more local, so I could participate in what they did, from being really young, hanging out with them after work, to going to their lacrosse games or whatever it was, school plays. Very important.
All the things you can't go back and just do it another time.
Exactly, you got it. So
Yeah, good for you. So I'll share with our listeners that Mark and I have a similar skill, affliction, whatever you want to call it. We like, as I understand, you like to go rogue sometimes, or I'll use those words, and I do too. But we honed ourselves in. The show is never scripted, but we did want to have a few things we wanted to touch on. So one of those things that you were kind enough to share, Mark, was keeping equipment and buildings running reliably. And could you expand on what you mean by that?
sure. So our joke, my predecessor, is that our job is to keep the air at 80 psi, to keep the water flowing in the right direction and the power on at all times. So this is what facility people think about at night when they're on their couch by themselves, with a quiet moment. All the problems that could arise, how to avert a potential nightmare. What services should you do? What services should you put off? We are a manufacturing facility. We're 24/7. We have 2 shifts. And we shut down. I think last year we had 2 shutdown days. So you can see that for us, it's really time is money. And we have a commitment, that we really want to keep with our customers. And we need to maintain a certain output. So getting preemptive and planned and ready to go, we have that small window of opportunity to do whatever, do a refresh on an air compressor, or troubleshoot a chiller, or do testing on switch gears, right? Or replace capacitors, whatever it is. We take that opportunity. So we always have things in the queue. We usually know all the people we need to contact. But the first part of the project management is getting that slot of time, to get in there and do the work. So it behooves us to know how much time we really need to do the work, with that buffer, so we don't um, overpromise and underdeliver. We always try to underpromise and overdeliver. That's really service 101. It keeps a happy customer, and everything's relative, right? So if you tell the plant manager it's going to be a half a day, they're going to complain. But if you say it's a day event and I could do it in a half day, well, that kind of puts a totally different flavor on it, and you may have an opportunity to get more buy-in from the leadership group. So that's what I do in a nutshell. I
It's amazing.
worry and I fix things.
Yeah, I know. As you've said, sounds so calming and relaxing, right? But all of us on the show here know this. You sit on the couch for a quiet moment, and what are you worried about? Power going out, the water isn't flowing, something like that. Um, you touched on avoiding unexpected breakdowns. Can you expand on what you meant? Like, how do you do that, Mark?
So I think you have to know your equipment well, and and by well, not just his personality, but kind of the engineering aspect of it, right? So you need to know how things operate as a system, and then you could better manage. You can have some more experience with the history, and you could better manage where maybe a manufacturer member recommends service in 12-month intervals, but you have a long history with this piece of equipment. Know through your services that you could probably stretch it to 12 or 14 months, right? So it's these little tweaks that we're always thinking about. Maybe your cooling water is a little too cold, right? There's another example. So your chilled water is at 42 and actually you can get away with it running at 47. So now you're spending extra energy. Um, something as large as our plant, you're wasting money. Cooling water doesn't need to be at that lower temperature. So again, once you start understanding the physics and the science behind all these different things, you can make more intelligent decisions and manage them better. And this is why we love detailed histories. CMMS software typically is used where you have an administrator. They give work out to the reports, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. The carpenters have fields which they need to populate when work is done. And the service manager like make you look and see if there's a certain type of issue going on with whatever product, a repeat issue. Um, and you want to see, you could get service intervals. And you can look at the details of what the service tech found as far as how worn down the components were. And you could use these to actually guide you to make better decisions throughout the year. If you could stretch out service events, if you need to get a service person needs a little more training because you have repeat repairs or something like that. So that's one of the tools I use when I'm looking at these service events or queuing them up.
Fair to say it makes unpredictable things a little more predictable.
We're always worried about not having the answer. So I guess we're covering or thinking about these things so we're not caught off guard like a deer in a you never want to see a facility manager with the deer in the headlight look.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. Very
Plan.
true.
Plan A, plan B, and sometimes plan C.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to move on to another topic, and that's really safety. I know it's something you and I had touched on. It's really near and dear to the show and our whole community because we've had a lot of not only facility engineers and managers and directors, but a lot of safety professionals on the show too. So, we talk about safety for people, property, process. How would you walk through that with us, Mark?
So let me give you some background. So, first off, I've seen a lot of unfortunate industrial accidents, and some crazy stuff happen, in the workplace, in the lab. So me being a trained scientist, chemist in particular, I've always had a focus on, and been trained, know what you're working with. There's SDSs, know what you're working with, know how they react with other chemicals, in the environment, what care, precautions, and personal protective wear you need to wear when you're handling these chemicals. And so it's only natural when you get into facilities, it's really the same thing. There's still chemicals occasionally we work with. And you just got to be, first of all, you got to know the rules. And there's a lot of common sense, right? It's probably not a good idea that your electrician's standing on the top rung of a ladder with no one supporting the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or someone going in and using the bandsaw without a pair of safety glasses. And my whole team knows that they're empowered such that my carpenters, when I talk to them, I said, "This is your shop. This is you're the owner of this shop." Or the plumbers are the owner of their areas, et cetera, electricians. So if someone comes in from the tool room and wants to use something and they have unsafe bits and they're not following safety protocols, I've empowered my team to be able to uh, have those people get retrained, have them stop them from using the electric power equipment where it may pose a danger to them or others around them. And it's worked out quite well. We typically make sure that everyone's trained up. We have a lot of inspections and things that we're responsible for as far as emergency lights, fire extinguishers. We have what we call ESOs where we want to make sure that everyone is involved. I was always trained safety is everyone's business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every time, because I'm a senior person here, someone on the floor says, "Mark, you need to be safe or do this or put your safety glasses up. I always thank them. I'm like, this is great. Thank you. You did just what you're supposed to do. And I appreciate that to give them the empowerment to make sure that everyone's safe. Everyone looks out for everyone else. Um, and this is how we operate. We have a lot of plastic that could go on the floor because we do make syringes. So we have ESOs and we encourage people to pick up these scraps or pieces of plastic on the floor and throw them into the correct waste bin. Because people have a tendency because they're clear to slip on them and get hurt and fairly hurt pretty good because you're falling on a piece of plastic. It's like almost like falling or slipping on ice. Our ultimate goal is to reduce the number of instances over time, certainly not be the number one site for injuries. We have quite a few sites in FED in the US. So
You know what I like the most about everything you just shared, but the biggest thing is when it's pointed out to you as like you said, as a senior person in the organization, that Mark, your glasses, you say thank you.
yes,
For me,
absolutely.
that encourages that culture.
Absolutely. So encouragement and try to encourage my reports to do the same thing. And far as making sure when they have visitors or contractors on site, the contractors have steel toe shoes, safety glasses at all time. They know the do's and don'ts. If they need a lift, they get the proper training and sign offs. And they just know the rules of the road when they're a visitor on site.
Excellent. Now, this could be related to safety or anything else, Mark, but what would you say has been the most challenging situation you and your team have faced? And it could be 10 years ago, it could be yesterday.
I would say for this manufacturing, um, because in a lab environment, they stick to the protocol as far as like the service schedule. They really don't want to miss service scheduling. A lot of time on these very sophisticated analytical pieces of equipment, if you're missing the service schedule, you may be missing a calibration. So that piece of equipment is deemed unusable, and usually there's a sticker over it. So, and we're here, we kind of, hey, we don't have any reports or any deviations or any problems. So let's just keep the line running. And then of course there's protocols with the quality group where we're allowed to put off a service event for so long as appropriate documentation occurs. Um, but, there are times where, maybe a heated compression dryer, may be failing, and that could supply air to the whole manufacturing. So in the case like that, that's extremely urgent that we repair it sooner rather than later, because if that were to fail, we have no air in the plant, and that means that production's not occurring, right? So it's all about
Mhm.
buying. You gotta be part of the part salesperson. And you got to learn how to fly at 50,000 feet leadership group. You can't go in there and you're like, oh my God, do you know what's going? It's supposed to be serviced at 50, it's at 300, right? You got to fly at 50,000 feet, talk to the leadership group, right? Quality, safety, money, customer, reputation in the arena for syringe manufacturing. So those are things that usually leadership values and responds to.
You know what I really like, Mark, is a handful of times now you've said how you relate to certain groups or different parts of the company or people in the company, and that's, the leadership team. How are you presenting this?
Yeah.
And
So
if you, like you said, if you go in panicked, that's not going to be received well.
yeah. So my major in school was chemistry, math, and physics. I was raised go big or go home. So like I told someone yesterday, uh, I'm a bike rider, and I said, why ride 20 when you could ride 120 miles, or ride 2 hours when you could ride for 13 hours? That's where the fun begins, right? That's the journey of life where you really start finding out who you are as a person. So that's kind of the mantra I live by is don't worry how challenging it is. Enjoy the journey, right? Don't you'll be surprised. And I can tell you through experiences in life I had how far you could really push yourself mentally and physically. And the vast majority of people on this planet don't even come close. Trust me, they don't come close at all.
Hey, rock stars. If you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Culbert, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Culbert is there to make hard work easy. Visit culbert.com today to get started. That's awesome. So this is twice in less than a week. I've heard there was a previous guest. I'll say who it was, Ray T-Burge, and I think you guys would get along great because he has done the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire 4 times.
Here's our bond. Athletes think differently. Lifelong athletes, we just, everything to us, we kind of take what we learn in our sports and we apply it to life, right? So here's an example. So I used to downhill mountain bike and I used to jump off these 15 to 18 foot sheer drop offs. And they were so intense that I usually actually get physically almost get sick. And I knew that my skill set was, I had the ability to do this. Of course, there's really nowhere, room for error. I can tell you after doing that type of stuff, the ultra braces, the extreme professional downhill courses that I challenge. You look at the other things in life and you're like, those are so minor, So I have a lecture I need to give a room full of PhDs, and I said something wrong. BFD, right? It's a heck of a lot easier than, oops, I missed my jump in the landing spot and I broke 3 ribs and, my arm, and now I'm out of work or I lost my job. So when you have that kind of perspective, you can see how you could really empower yourself in what you do. Of course, there's always the aspect of a lot of hard work that goes along with that, So for example, aside from my 10 years of schooling where I studied chemistry, math, and physics, I've been doing things since the 90s, and I go home every night and study something new, right? So, and I usually take a deep dive. And so I become somewhat of a subject matter expert. The thing that's kind of funny about it is a lot of stuff I learned kind of fades away because they're one-offs, right? But I think the point is, and this is one of my many models that I have, no job is too large or too small. If it's important to the customer, it's important to me.
That's great. Well, I'm sure they appreciate that motto as well and that mindset of yours. You are a very passionate guy, and like I've said, I thoroughly enjoy engaging with you, Mark. So I want to ask you this, right? What do you love the most about your job, and why?
I love the most about my job is this is really hard. No one could figure it out. Go for it. See if you can figure it out. That's the cream on the top. Um, that I don't think anything makes me happier than that. And even the pursuit of answers for those types of problems. I'm just a very happy person. I love to pursue it. I think my manager and my peers definitely see that in me. Um, so I would say that's number one, helping customers. And then the little things like, you don't always have to go big. It's like, oh, it's freezing in the front office, and you tweak it for them, or
Mm-hmm.
or there's a problem and you figure it out, right? So we had it actually happened. We had blockage in one part of the front office wasn't eating. So we took the extra time and care to investigate this, and we actually fixed that uh, in this process of determining why it wasn't heating in a certain zone. And it was pretty minor, but oh my God, just think there's like 50 happy people now in the front office. You can't get away with cold people. Cold workers, it just ain't gonna fly.
And the fact that you love that, and that's your role and your team's role is just fantastic. That's one of the things. Maybe you already answered it, but is there anything more to say about like one of the topics you had said? Hey, I want to speak to creating a better environment for everyone. I think that's where the path you just started going down there.
And it's like I'll work on energy projects in the factory, or I'll say, we need to the leadership group, we need to update our conference rooms. Let's make them the newest, latest, and greatest Microsoft Teams rooms. I get buy-in. I've had a lot of experience with super fancy labs and facilities. I worked in Boston. And of course, they spare no expense, even on the artwork and how they handle everything. We're kind of very low key compared to Boston and Cambridge area, and especially here in Western Connecticut. It's beautiful farm country, and there's not much industry around. We were actually located here, I guess back in the day. The U.S. government wanted critical infrastructure located kind of in more strategic locations where they were safe from attack. In a manufacturing plant that makes syringes falls under that criteria. Um, we've been here since 1961, and we've had buildings, I believe, going up through the 90s. So I think the newest building was put up in the 90s, and that's what we call New Beam. It's the newest sterilization portion of our warehouse. So we have
Mm.
the old sterilization and the new sterilization, and
Hmm.
we have an extreme amount of capacity for sterilizing products to ship. So it's a pretty impressive plant. That was one of the things that impressed me the most is the automation aspect of it, because I come from hardcore research laboratories and biotech facilities. So to see this level of automation was pretty cool. Robotics, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. Um,
I bet it was.
yeah, and there's always, not that I could do anything with it, but there's always like an industrial engineering aspect of it to look how things are laid out, because there's a bunch of chiefs and everyone has their own ideas and they're pretty much focused on their area. But when you get an overall picture of how everything operates, it's extremely complex. Uh, but there's a lot of things you can do if you look at the spaghetti diagrams and you start seeing where products are pushed and moved to, of how you could probably make better workflows and stuff like that. Um, but I like the big challenges and the little challenges too. I mean, whatever comes my way, that's why I'm here. I wouldn't be a good facility manager if I just picked the hard stuff and let the easy stuff go, just because I like a parent. It's not about you,
Yeah, right.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. Nope. No, no, it's not. I just a quick side note. I'll have to introduce you to my brother-in-law at some point, Mark, because he's a big mountain biker and he likes jumping and doing the things you're talking about. And, his wife, my sister-in-law, and my father-in-law don't like it one bit because there's pins in his ankles and there's other things that happened and all that stuff. So- but he
Yeah,
still does it
yeah,
and he loves it.
yeah. Well, it clears our minds. It keeps us healthy, keeps us strong, and
Right.
believe it or not, we've figured out a lot of these really intense problems that we deal with in life, personally and professionally, on our bikes.
Mm.
And for me, that's one of the main reasons I go. True freedom, and it's a great problem solving tool, to clear your head and sort things out. It's amazing when you get those endorphins cranking. The perspective of the world is totally different.
Mm. I love that you use the word perspective so many times. It's so true. It's how you look at things. Like what's the view? What's the
Yeah,
angle? What's
absolutely.
or the lens, right?
Yep. Yep.
You talked about solving problems fast. Can you expand on that a little bit, Mark? Like the importance of it, how you do it?
Well, we deal with problems all the time. And, like anything else, there's some problems people wanted solved yesterday. So the thing is to be in the know, right? So you as a facility manager should at least have an inkling of what's going on in your facility. And if you have an inkling about something going on in the facility, you should probably be thinking about it. So you're very rarely caught off guard. Um, but if you are, I think you just got to fall back onto your years of experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
We freak out, we get the facts, we ask around, we deem it subject matter experts, excuse me, or we get them involved to give us their opinion. Um, make sure that you have plenty of inventory for what you deem consumable parts
Mm-hmm.
for anything that you have in stock, especially if it's a one-off item, a heating element for a water heater, condensation pump, whatever. And you need to be, again, a subject matter expert, because you physically can't have one of every part that you need. So you need to go on your experience or go into your um, service notes and see, what product X mostly uses or fails on a heater or whatever you're working on. And to make sure that you have that. Part sourcing is also a big deal. A lot of times we have a manufacturer and the part that you need is not in stock. So we have the luxury. I'm pretty good at part sourcing. I have the luxury of a world-class tool room. So I
Mm,
just bring the part in and see if these guys can make it, my colleagues, or see if through the manufacturer and the manufacturer's engineer, see if there's a substitute or if you can get
mm,
away with something. It could be anything because
mm,
we have so many different things we work with. Um, so yeah, I would say stick to thinking about your job every night and the things that could go wrong. Um, Usually they won't, but just make sure you have plan A and B because you always have someone to answer to. And,
very true.
if you're managing the site, any site, but it's especially one that's just size and the scope of what we do, it's just, you need to be involved. Go to the meetings, talk to people, um, make sure that you look through the service events, and ask your subject matter experts like your master plumber what their opinion is, what you should have on hand, right? And then give them in power to be able to order the parts they need, or if they need tools, don't make them. My guys say I need tools. I'm like, go for it. Buy the best you can,
Mm, keep
especially if
ahead of
you have
it.
time, because I'm a tool guy. I know. And my managers always gave me that flexibility, and I bought the best toolboxes,
Right.
and I never regretted it, lugging them around because I had what I needed. Failure's not an option. You're only as good as your last job. You're one
Mm-hmm.
step away from death. These are just a few of the
Mm,
mottos that service people like me have.
mm-hmm. Very, very good amount of wisdom right there, Mark. So what if someone said to you, "Hey, Mark, I need some advice." What's the piece of advice you'd give them? Generally speaking, or specifically.
Well, I would say, what advice do you need? Do you want to be a service engineer? I would say great career. I would say, are you hungry? You need to be very hungry. There's no posers in service engineer.
Mm,
You need to study your butt off. You need to study your butt off by yourself. You can't wait for a classroom or for your company to train you. Um, and if you want to be a manager, I would, you better manage like managing people. That's one of the challenges I have. Kind of an introvert, which is pretty funny. And I
you
love
do
to get
not
in Mark's
present
world.
as an introvert at all.
Well, again, I use my sports and my discipline through my sports to get done whatever I need to. So I love hanging out in Mark's world. I could think in there all day. I got a zillion projects I'm working on, but I owe it to my reports to make sure I have one-on-ones with them, right? To make sure
Mm-hmm.
that if something's bugging them, that I can help them. So my job as their manager to give them the tools, inspiration, and motivation, whatever it is, for them to be the best they could be at their job. And then sometimes it's honesty,
Yep.
right? And it's amazing. And I tell my kids is if you can be so honest, brutally honest with people, as long as you're kind, what you can get away with, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But once you start putting up the guards and people stop listening and defense, but I think too your personality and when times are good will prove to people that you're there to help them, and that all you really want is them to succeed.
It's I love what you said too. You can be hard, but as long as you're kind. And I'm hearing a lot of consistency in what you do too, Mark, which is excellent. Whether it's always be learning, you're clearly a lifelong learner, or consistent with your reports and doing those one-on-ones. Just all these things you've walked us through. Very a high level of consistency in your day, week, year. It sounds like.
And that's why I think that they call them Mustangs, I think, in the Navy, where their people go through the ranks and they know what everyone does below them. And they usually have the most respect because they can't get shimmy sham because they know what everyone does, right? Uh,
Right.
and and they also know the mental aspect of what these people are going through. So I think there's a lot of mutual respect. And so I still have that philosophy, and I tell my plumber or my electrician, listen, I'll be your buddy ugly, AK a helper for the day. So whatever you need me to do, I'll run back and get parts for you. It kind of throws them off. I'm like, dude, what? You're the master plumber. I'll help you. It's a 2-person job. We need to get it done. I got bandwidth. Let's do it. And so that builds strength in the team too. That there's a lot of people I work for where they hang out in their office all day. You realize they really don't know much about the job they do. Uh, there's a mismatch because you can't talk shop with them because they're not really involved in this. They're more administrator leads than anything else.
Good distinction. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, and I'm sure they will, Marc, about any of the number of topics we discussed today, how would you ask them to do so?
I would say probably through LinkedIn or probably an email address.
Do you mind saying it on the show? We'll put it in the show notes, your email.
Sure. Email address best to reach me would be my first name, Marc, with a C, period, Cammarata, CAMMARATA at outlook.com. So it's going to be marc.cammarata at outlook.com. Or you could send me a request on LinkedIn. I'm kind of shy, even though I have a service engineer group since 2008. I think I don't know if it has 15,000 members yet, but it's pretty big. And I just read. I'm not really a social media guy. Offline, sometimes I'll reach out to someone if I have a solution to their problem, but I usually stand clear. It's kind of crazy to me, actually, but
well,
links turned into more of a Facebook, anyways. It's lost its it's lost its way.
Well, it's a pleasure talking with you, Marc, and I can't thank you enough for being on the show and just really sharing your journey and sharing all your wisdom and experience with us. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me, and I really enjoyed this. And I'm bummed that I was only one off from 100, but it's a great program. And I think that it's very important that people at facilities and a lot of other professional organizations network. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of experience in specific areas that we can help each other out. And I think that's really important to stay focused on that. So I appreciate your time, Jay, and I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Marc. And for everyone listening, if you learned something, if you laughed, if you connected with the show, tell somebody else about the show. Follow us on Spotify or facilityrockstars.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Great show again today. Thank you, Marc, and we'll catch everyone next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Culbert, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.